Nicola Hill, our health correspondent, joins us now from London. Nicola, I think I've got this pandemic fatigue myself, but what exactly is it, in your words?
Yes, I think most of us are suffering from it at the moment, Maria. Basically, it is, as you said, it's an overwhelming state of having to constantly be vigilant, constantly having to abide by the rules, and a weariness of having to do this the whole time. It's not the same as the people who are increasingly suffering from mental illness caused by the Covid-19 pandemic, although that is on the rise. Certainly here in the UK, the demand for mental health services has gone up by over 20%. And a study in America has shown that 28% of 2,000 people questioned have got signs of mental illness, compared to something like just over 3% a couple of years ago. So the pandemic fatigue is basically when we're sort of sick of this emotional and psychological challenge that we're having to deal with. And the problem is that people are beginning to take the pandemic, take the virus for granted. Familiarity is breeding contempt, and not being as vigilant in abiding by all the rules. So Anthony Fauci has been speaking to Americans just before or because of Thanksgiving, saying don't become complacent. And this is something that the American Psychological Association is warning about as well. They're saying that because we know more about this, because we have been living with this virus for so long, we are beginning to ignore its dangers, despite the fact that we now know that it causes long COVID. It's not just the elderly who are vulnerable. Despite all this, people are beginning to relax some of the social distancing, the mask wearing. I mean, you know, you and I have talked before about the fact that people not actually covering their nose, they're only wearing the mask across their mouth or sometimes just underneath their chin. So there's concern that also the fact that many governments are giving confusing restrictions. I mean, here in the UK, we're going into a complete lockdown on Thursday, but we have been having these tiers depending on which part of the country you live in. And that's confused people. And because they've been confused, they've not been abiding by the rules and again, becoming a bit more complacent. And it is this pandemic fatigue. It's like we've had enough. We've been living through this for so long. But the health officials are saying we've got to keep going because it doesn't look as though the beginning of 2021 is going to be very different from what it's been like now. We've got this this winter ahead of us. We're in the middle of it, or beginnings of it now. And we are just going to have to stick with it to protect ourselves and to protect other people.
Yeah, and I've just got my mask here. It's even got a flamingo on it, just so that I don't get tired of wearing my mask. And it hurts my ears, it hurts my face. I even go on air with lines, but you know, that's just nothing compared to other fatigue issues. But tell us, what are the authorities advising us people to deal with this second wave and that increasing fatigue?
Well, there's two things really. One of them is to reframe your point of view. This is what the psychologists are saying. So instead of saying, look, I can't see my parents, I can't see my grandparents, I'm missing them, to actually say, look, by speaking to them virtually, by not actually seeing them physically, I'm protecting them. So to turn it into a positive. And the World Health Organization is actually saying it's those virtual meetings, that virtual communication that's vitally important. They refer to the virtual celebrations during Ramadan and say that's the type of thing that we need to do. Also to ensure that communities are involved in the decisions and the discussions around what restrictions are being put in place, so that people, in a way, they own it and therefore they'll be more involved. And then, of course, what lots of people themselves are doing is that they're returning to some of the old-fashioned pursuits. Apparently, the sales of books here in the UK and in Sweden have gone through the roof. People are reading. I have to say, I've reformed a book group on Zoom with a group of my friends because it's great that you're sharing something. Knitting's become popular, and cooking. Certainly the beginning of the first wave, everyone was making banana bread or sourdough bread with sourdough starters, and apparently it's soda bread this winter, so we'll all be cooking a lot more.
Soda bread, love it. Thank you so much, Nicola, for speaking to us about lockdown fatigue. Appreciate it. Thank you.